What is up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well out there. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever you are in the world. It is, of course, Andrew Esquire, and this is the Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. And this is an impromptu stream. I normally, it's when it's evening over here in Asia, I don't always stream. In fact, I normally do it when I have some sort of news that's come up during the day here, something that's come up, something that's come up that's really big. And this is actually really big news. So yeah, I'm going to cover it. Today we're going to talk about this proxy fight that's coming up, this proxy war that's coming up. I'm going to do a little bit of education here. So we're going to walk you through what a proxy fight is, who Nelson Peltz is, and what changes to expect at Disney, if any. We're going to go through it all. We're going to go through their board, all that stuff today. So should be a great one. And of course, drop those live emojis. Thank you, Daniel. Already dropping the live emojis in the chat over here on YouTube. If you like those, make sure you're a member, not just for the live emojis. No, not just for that, but also for the exclusive members only videos, including members only streams. We're actually having a members only stream. Yes, later this week, we're going to have our Pimpcast, which will be with, of course, my good friend Drexel, which will be members only on Legal Mindset. It will also be on Rumble for everybody and also on my other channel, Illegal Mindset. So you can get it for free on Rumble or Illegal Mindset, or you can come over here and become a member. Either way, there always are benefits for being a member. Speaking of which, is it live? Who's a member for 2 months? Says Andrew, live in the morning with coffee. Good way to start the day. Well, your boy here, you're live with coffee, right? But I mean, it's nighttime for your boy Legal Mindset. Now, in the morning I was drinking whiskey, on my own thing, but we got this Asahi Dry here. So we're going to go in over here in Asia with some Asian beer and, cheers to the next proxy battle here. Live and drinking within 3 minutes of the stream going active. But good to see everybody up here in the chat today, this morning, whether you're here on YouTube, whether you're over here on Rumble, shout out to all those that come through on Rumble, or whether you're over on Locals, because of course we are also live on Locals as well. So good to see everybody, no matter what platform they are on. Now, that being said, we're going to jump right into this one today. So I actually thought there wasn't that much Disney news. In fact, when I first was thinking about looking at what was going on with Disney, I was like, well, this is what I was seeing. I was seeing stuff like this. And let me pull this up real quick. I was like trying to see what I could drum up for Disney news. And look, people are willing to stretch it. People are willing to push the envelope with Disney stuff. Sometimes when it's a slow day, I can't imagine, my good friends like Valiant Renegade, WW Pro, they're always reaching to find Disney news, which is great because they stay on top of that topic. And some days it's a slow day. And I thought, well, is this the most exciting thing happening today, or the most exciting thing happening recently, that they're going to sell their Indian assets? I'm like, look, no offense to India. I mean, lots of Indian tourists over here in Southeast Asia, but it's not that big of a deal. Those don't make them that much money. In fact, they're kind of like a loss almost. So, hey, they're going to sell some stuff in Bangladesh, some Indian assets. Okay, that's not that big of a deal. And I looked at the stock. And if you look at the stock on a short-term chart, so you look at it on a daily chart, so we're going to pull out to the daily here, it actually looks decent. Now, it was better this morning. It was actually, when I first looked at this, it was over here at about 83.5, 84, 83.4, so $83.40. Now we're down to 82.93. So now we start to see the downward trend. But when I first checked this story, we were actually on an upward trend. The thing is with these charts, and this is what most people do not do, they look at the one-day chart, but they don't zoom out to, like, let's say 6 months here, right? Because when you look at the 6-month chart, things do not look bad. And actually, I like the area charts better because it's more clear, especially for this. But yeah, when you zoom out the 6 month, you see what's going on here. And you see that Disney has been on a downward trend. Just because, don't let the one-day chart fool you, right? The one-day chart looks pretty decent, right? Looks all right. But you go over here to the 6 month chart, and you're like, oh, this is a downward trend. And look, they don't call me financial mindset here, so I'm not trying to give any sort of financial advice. But when you look at a downward trend, what you're looking for is, do the highs beat a previous high? So see, there's a high here of 93. Well, then a high here of 90. Then you go down here to a high of 95, and then a high of like 83, right? 83.5. So their highs are constantly lower, 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 lower. And their lows are lower, lower, lower. So that is a downward trend. And if you pull out even further to a year or even 2 years, you see this is a huge downward trend. This is a massive downward trend for Disney. This is a huge dip for the Diz. In fact, we're almost at like COVID levels, because even at the lowest of the low was 79, but really was 91.9180 over here in the COVID lows. So we're back to COVID lows with this stock. So we're definitely in a trash can type spiral, which is exactly the type of situation when you start to have investors getting worried, investors getting involved. So when I woke up today and I saw this news, and this is from the Wall Street Journal, which is activist investor Nelson Peltz is taking another run at Disney, seeking multiple board seats in a push that become a proxy battle. This time around, Peltz has 30 million shares, 3 times the stake he had the first time. Yeah, so it didn't work out when he only had 10, but the guy has been buying up stock like crazy since February. So clearly he thinks that he can turn this around and that he can cause some change at Disney if he's been buying since February while it's dipping. So saying he's been out there buying it up, preparing for this battle, right? Very, very, very interesting. And let's see right here. Bella Stella says, looking forward to Pimpcast. Hope I wake up in time for it, though. It's going to be a good one. It's been a while. We got some pent-up energy, Drexel and I. So it's going to be a fun stream on Pimpcast. I hope you guys can catch that, whether you're members. If you're a member, it'll be great. Otherwise, head over to Illegal Mindset or Rumble, and you can join there and follow along. Is it live for Canadian 5 says, how bad is it that $83 is now considered a good stock price? Hashtag, dang it, Bob. Yeah, I don't think it's considered a great stock price, especially for them in the scope of their company, in scope of Disney. Now, let's start with a little bit about the history here before we get into like what a proxy fight is. So this whole talk about a proxy fight, this whole talk about him getting involved, this may sound like a broken record because back in February, you see here February, and let me zoom in here. February of 2003, right? So this year, earlier this year, he said that the fight was over, that he was going to trust Iger to restructure the company, and that he was done fighting this proxy battle. That Peltz was, it's good beer. Good beer. That Peltz was done fighting this proxy battle. He said that in February. Well, lo and behold, we have this, so now we're in October. Now this is, 8 months later, he is going for board seats. He's going for another proxy battle. So clearly, whatever Iger has been doing in the last 8 months, Peltz thinks he's been fucking up. To put it undiplomatically, by the way, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that in the first 10 minutes. Oh, well, you guys can make up for it by liking the stream. That really helps. You guys like the stream, makes out for me cursing in the first 10 minutes. And good point here. Is it live? Says 60 million stock is about 1.6 stock. It's not, like I said, it's not 99%, right? But is it a significant amount? Yes, it is a significant amount, right? It's a significant amount. Now we'll talk about what this can do from the standpoint of even a minority stockholder, right? So even somebody that does not have the majority of shares. So, and they're saying right now that his the amount that he holds is at 2.5 billion. And what the goal is of a proxy fight, even when you don't have full control, even when you don't have a majority of the stock. So let's get right into that. So what I wanted to do is first just start with a little bit of educational stuff because, a lot of times people like my good friend Valiant Renegade and I, we'll get into it, Valiant Renegade or WW Pro, or, we'll just jump into stuff, Mexican Iron Man. I mean, we just jump into stuff like we know what we're talking about. And we do know what we're talking about, by the way. These guys are all highly intelligent. Valiant Renegade, WD Pro, Jonas, these guys, these guys are all Mexican Iron Man. These guys are professionals. They know what they're talking about. And we can just talk about it like it's nothing. But I think we've been taking everything for granted. And I think there's a little bit of education that's merited on proxy fights. So I found a really good educational video. It's very short, 5 minutes on proxy fights. And I'm going to pause it and kind of apply this to the current situation before we get into who Nelson Peltz is and what his agenda is and where he's going with this. But I want to educate you guys on what a proxy fight is, exactly what it is and what does it do. So that's what we're going to start with here today. And we'll, as always, we'll go through this and apply it. It's not just theory. It's going to be application plus theory. So here we go with this little tab. Here we're going to be talking about proxy battles. So strap in for some educational stuff. This is actually really well done. So I couldn't do this as well. So thank you to the creator of this video for making this so clear. Also, thank you, Leprechaun Gold, for the $20 Shiba #1 super sticker. Appreciate you very much. You guys making it rain on me recently. Appreciate you. And then Is It Live saying it makes him the third largest stockholder. And that's the important part. So here's the headline. Disney's third largest stockholder, individual stockholder, thinks this or is doing this. Think about what that will do to the stock. Think about what that will do to confidence in Disney if there is the third largest stockholder who is known for doing this. And we'll get into his reputation, who's known for targeting a specific type of company, is doing this. So let's get into what a proxy fight is. Let's jump right in.
When a shareholder tries to take control of a company by getting enough votes to force management to do something, we call this a proxy fight. And it's called a proxy fight because the shareholders who can't attend the annual meeting for the company, they can vote by proxy. And proxy is a couple of things. It could be that you send in a thing called a proxy card, where basically you get this thing in the mail, you fill it out and say, here's how I want to vote. And then you mail it back to the company. Or it could, in some cases, be done online. Basically, you are not going to the annual meeting to be able to vote, but you still are voting by proxy. So the shareholder or group of shareholders that is trying to get control and force the company to make some changes, what they're trying to do is collect enough proxies, basically trying to get enough votes to be able to force through whatever it is they want. Maybe it is that they are trying to defeat a management proposal. Okay, it could also be that they're trying to get rid of some members of the board of directors. So typically,
let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. Okay, they're trying to get rid of a number of board of directors. Nelson Peltz has said he wants a seat on the board. He wants to be on the board. So that's the key there, is saying we are gunning for the board. We are looking at the current board and we are saying they are a bunch of incompetent fools. And we're going to look at the board later and see what you guys think about the board. We're going to go through that and look at the Disney board here and see exactly what they are and who they are. But that's exactly what you're going. So there's no really management proposal here on the table. There's nothing that's huge in terms of Disney doing it that management's going to fundamentally change Disney. But we do see there's a lack of oversight in Disney from the board of directors. The board of directors has been slacking off, has been just rubber stamping everything Iger wants to do. So it seems that Peltz is tired of this. He doesn't want this to happen. He doesn't want an Iger rubber stamp for the foreseeable future. And here's the key, guys. Yes, he may be the one leading it, but it can be a group of investors. So while he's the spearhead, what he can do is at this annual meeting, he can propose his candidates and other investors can vote for his candidates. So he can put up his slate and draw in other investors and try to recruit enough votes to win. And all they've got to do is get more votes than the other side. So, and you might have certain people that don't vote, certain people that do not submit it. So All he's got to do is put up that slate and then start drawing other people in to vote. And that is a huge show of no confidence for Iger. It is a huge split for the board. If Iger has been going in there, as he has, with a pretty much consensus vote, where he's putting up these board of directors, folks, and they're just rubber stamped in, rubber stamped in, rubber stamped in. That's absolutely why Iger feels like he can do whatever he wants to do, because he just is able to rubber stamp on the board and no one can call him on his bullshit. No one can fire him. But if you've got a board in there that's actually doing their jobs, actually paying attention, well, then you might get some more scrutiny. Might have to get some more scrutiny. 2012, Jameson, proxy fight versus earning calls versus Hulu buyout out. A lot of stuff going on right now. And it's important to understand all of these things and how they're going to affect them piece by piece. So you guys can tune back to this when this fight happens and know exactly what's happened in the proxy fight. So let's continue here explaining proxy fights. But I just wanted to put that this point here, this point on the bottom here, unseating members of the board, that I think is the key for Disney. That's what's going on right now. So there's definitely that push.
What'll happen is this: the company itself will propose and say, okay, look, we want these 12 people. These are the people we are recommending that you as shareholders vote for. We're putting them forward and say that they should be the board of directors. Now, basically, if you are an activist shareholder, you can come in and say, listen, I don't want these 12. I'm going to propose a different 12 people or a different group of people and say that shareholders should vote for them. They should vote against what management is proposing, and they should take these different members and put them on the board. And you say, well, why would...
So pause right there. So that's exactly what Peltz is trying to do. So Peltz is trying to say, okay, here's Iger's slate. Screw that. We're going to put up our own slate. We're going to put up a different slate.
This activist investor, why would they want to get people off the board of directors? Well, when you control the board of directors, so if you can get your own group of 12 people on the board of directors, what you can do is that board can fire management. They can fire the CEO and so forth. So if you are wanting the company to go along with an acquisition and the existing management and board is fighting that, you say, well, look, you go to the other shareholders. Maybe you run an ad in the Wall Street Journal.
Can you imagine that right now? Can you imagine an ad in the Wall Street Journal by Nelson Peltz saying, don't trust Bob Iger. His board is a bunch of cronies that are full of shit, and vote for me. You know what that will do to their stock? You think their stock price is bad now? Do you think 80 is bad? Hello 50s and 60s. I mean, it will tank. It will tank.
Contact them. You hire a company called a proxy solicitation firm. You basically go and you contact all the shareholders and you say, listen, management is really screwing up here, right? They're screwing us over. We're losing money. What we got to do is we got to get rid of the people they're proposing to be on the board. We got to unseat the board. And here are these new people we can put forward, and they will go and fire the CEO, and maybe they'll get rid of, let's say that the company has a poison pill. Okay, a poison pill is an anti-takeover mechanism. So
by the way, so I don't think in this case they're trying to take over. They're just trying to get seats on the board, right? So I think in this case, they're not trying to get rid of a poison pill. It's not a takeover scenario, but it is a scenario where they're trying to have changes made at Disney. So I think, while it's not, I think, a necessarily a takeover scheme, it's definitely something to change the board composition. There is a difference there, though. There is a difference.
Say, you know what? We're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of management, and we're going to make sure that this merger happens because you're going to make more money. So that's what basically a proxy fight can be about. It doesn't have to be always about a takeover. It could be maybe you're trying to reduce management's compensation. Maybe there was some kind of proposal to increase management's compensation. You're trying to fight that. So a real life example, William Ackman and this hedge fund that he started, Pershing Square Capital Management, they started a proxy fight with the retailer Target. Okay. And so basically what happened, Ackman wanted...
Ackman is one of the famous activist investors. Some people don't like to be called activist investors. Actually, Nelson Peltz does not like the term activist investor. But Ackman is up there with Peltz in terms of notoriety for intervening in companies that are not doing well. So let's listen up to this.
number of changes. And one of the things was the real estate. So Target's retail stores, they sit on top of land, and basically he wanted that land to be spun off into a real estate investment trust. Hey, and Target didn't want to do it. They didn't think it was a good idea. So Ackman said, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just propose my own slate of directors that
And
they.
by the way, wouldn't it be hilarious if the Disney parks were spun off into REITs? That would be hilarious if Walt Disney World was spun off, was spun off into REITs, real estate investment trusts. That would be absolutely hilarious. It probably won't happen. And there's a lot of problems with that in terms of control. But yeah, that would be very funny. I would love to see that. It's not going to happen, but I'd love to see it.
Get elected to Target's board, and he's trying to get control of the board so he can get these changes to actually take place. And unfortunately for Ackman, his directors did not get elected. Target's board members were elected, so the management won in that case. Okay, so when proxy fights are more likely to succeed if the company has been doing very poorly, if the company's incurring.
What's that? Okay, hold on. What did you just say? They're likely to succeed if the company has been doing poor. Let's see. What corporation has been doing really, really bad and has been really tanking in stock? And what company could say, hey, look, we can offer you potential gains here. We can offer you potential wins and get a bunch of stock shareholders on their side. I think that could be Disney. I think Disney is in that position where they have lost enough value that they can get shareholders on their side. Shareholders are at the point of suing Disney. They're at the point of the pension funds are suing Disney. Other individual shareholders are suing Disney. So we're at the point of shareholder suits against Disney. We're at the point of securities violations by Disney being alleged in multiple suits. So, we've got the TSG lawsuit. We've got the Florida lawsuits. We got all these lawsuits, all this liability, all these people mad at Disney. Now is the time. The performance is abysmal. This could not be a better time, especially when they're getting scrutiny. They're under pressure with the earnings calls and the Hulu closing. So this is the time to put the pressure on for their slate of board of directors or for Peltz's vision for the company going forward. So yeah, now is definitely the time. So most likely to succeed.
Large losses.
Now
it's easier to make the case to other shareholders that, hey, we need change, right? Management is really screwing up and you need to come over. I've got a good idea. I've got a good alternative here that, and the other shareholders say, hey, I like this. I like that. We should go with this merger, or we should go and we'll do this real estate investment trust, spin off the land. Okay. Now, another thing is, if the company's management, so if you're trying to force the company to do something, you're trying to get enough proxies, but let's say the company's management, the company's CEO owns like 40% of the voting stock of that firm. Then
okay, so let's explore that. So we're in a scenario where you might say, oh, well, Andrew, it doesn't matter because BlackRock and Vanguard, who are total simps for Iger, own a significant percentage, right? They own a significant percentage. Well, here you go. It could be not just to take over the company, but also to propose alternatives for alternative board members, alternative ways of thinking, or just alternative management strategies, which you can do even if you don't have a majority of shareholders on your side.
And that's going to be harder to do a proxy fight because management is against you, right? You're trying to force them to do something they don't want to do. Management is against you. And if they control 40% of the shares, then that's a lot fewer shares that are available, that they're shareholders that you could go and convince, right? If management own nothing, if they own no shares at all, then you could go to any of those potential shareholders. But clearly this 40%, if they own 40%, you're not going to be able to convince management. Management is already against you.
But yeah, by the way, Iger does not own 40% of the company. So, I mean, that's also not a thing.
Only got the remaining 60% of the shares outstanding. And there's always the difficulty of convincing people to like go against management and go with your plan. Now, sometimes you'll see, I mentioned proxy fights with takeovers, and sometimes you'll see a proxy fight coupled with a tender offer. So basically a company says, all right, look, here's a tender offer. We are offering to acquire company X for $38 a share cash. So there's our tender offer, but maybe the company that they're making this tender offer for, they have a poison pill. So that could prevent them from being able to do the takeover. So what they do is they say, okay, well, here's a tender offer, $38 a share. But then they, at the same time, start a proxy fight to try and get rid of this poison pill.
So that's a strategy that some folks use when they're trying to take over a company. Now, we can make a speculation that this could be coupled with a tender offer, although at this point, you know, it is pretty wild speculation to be guessing who's buying Disney, right? Like, who's actually going to buy out Disney, who's going to give the tender offer at this point. I don't think there's a buyer out there yet, but I'm not ruling it out in the long run. Not really in the long run. 2012 Jameson says, is it 12 days of Christmas? Lawsuits too. Yes. There's so many lawsuits. There's so many things going on. I mean, literally, Disney is the gift that keeps on giving. And I appreciate what it does for channels like mine, Valiant, WW Pro, that have been on this like a dog from a legal perspective, financial perspective, professional perspective for a while. VR said the Disney board is like Disney gumbo. I'm going to get back to that. So hold on a hot minute. We're about to get into the board itself. So just pause on that one. We'll jump into the board. Do not worry. Incoherent Turd says, I support him trying to change the board. Sadly, it's probably a 5+ year project for Disney to get any credibility back. I agree with you. It is a very long process. It's going to be 6 years, 5 years. And look, even if Disney goes and says we're going to change, people aren't going to believe them. People aren't going to believe them. So they're going to need to win people's trust back, and that's not going to be easy, especially with Iger there. Frankly, if Iger is in that seat, I don't think people are trusting Disney. I think until Iger is gone and he's purged out fully, not having an office in the back room, not as executive consultant, until he is gone, I think there's going to be some trust issues here. JL says, did you see that BlackRock is ditching ESG? I have not seen that. I need to see that to believe it. So JL, that's like, was that from the Babylon Bee? Like, you know, is that real? Well, I'll check it out. I will check it out. That could be, if that is true, which I'm not saying it is. I've not heard that. I'd have to confirm that. But if it's true, that would be interesting because BlackRock is an infinite investor in Disney. So that would be a material fact. Valiant says, Peltz is now the 5th or 6th largest single shareholder in Disney stocks, 2.5 bigger than he was last time. Mondo Power. Valiant apparently he bought even more. Apparently he's 3 times, and he's got 3x bigger and you know, is up there. So, but whatever, regardless of whether he's 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th, he's a major shareholder and he has a lot of say and ability to convince other shareholders to come on him on this righteous campaign, to join him, Deuce Volt against the corruption of the rat emojis in the chat, everybody. And thank you, Leprechaun Gold, for the $50 super sticker. Appreciate the jumping Shiba with fireworks. It really helps. Your support helps this channel so much. It helps me do what I do on a regular basis. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you, Leprechaun Gold. So let's jump right into the board because I want to show the board. I know it's something we've talked about before, but now it's relevant. So let me just show you this cast of characters they have over here as members of the board of directors. So here you go. You've got the Disney board of directors. So let's see how qualified these people are. Okay. You've got Mark Parker here, who's the chairman of the board. What does Mark do? Well, Mark works at Nike. He works at Nike in product research, design, and brand management. What the hell does Mark Parker know about theme parks? What does he know about media? Nothing. Maybe he knows about merchandise, but it's a whole different field. And that's your chairman. Your chairman is just off the mark. He's not in that area at all. Next, down the line, Mary. Well, she's a woman, right? We get ESG points for that. Strong women. General Motors. General Motors and General Dynamics. Nothing to do with theme parks. Nothing to do with media. Okay, let's move on. Maybe they got more. Maybe they got more. Safra Cat's here. More strong women positions. Oracle. Okay, nothing to do with anything that they do at all whatsoever. Amy Chang. Got a little Asian diversity in there. Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble, remember that because Procter & Gamble will not help out with this, but may help out when it comes to people telling Iger FAFO, because Procter & Gamble had a very interesting experience, as you'll learn, with Mr. Nelson Peltz. So we're going to hear about that in a second. So even though it's irrelevant here, even though her experience is irrelevant here, it's going to be relevant for the proxy fight. So we'll pay attention to that. Francis de Souza, assuming we're getting a little Latinx flair. Where's Mexican Iron Man at? Need my lawn mowed. Illumina, a biotech company. Of course, we got to get biotech in there because, gotta be everywhere, right? Nothing to do with that at all whatsoever. Carolyn Everson, might as well be Karen. Instacart. Oh God, Instacart. Nothing to do with this whatsoever. Nothing to do with Disney. Michael B.G. Froman, president of CFR. Once again, why do we need this? So you can cozy up to China? So you can cozy up to China? What's going on there? What's going on there? And you got Iger. Oh, he's, of course, he is on the board himself. Maria Elena Lagomaciano, managing partner of WE Families, JP Morgan experience, Chase Bank, also on the CFR, probably sucking up to China. Calvin McDonald with the most offensive glasses in a while. President of Lululemon. Once again, nothing to do with anything related to what Disney is doing. And last but not least, you got Derica W. Rice. And no, before you say anything, hold on. Before you guys say anything, no, I'm not stretching out this picture in a weird way. It's actually the shape of his skull. Just saying. President of CVS Caremark. So a bunch of people who don't know jack diddly about the actual business of Disney. Not a single one of them has leadership experience with theme parks, with major media, any of that. So you've got a board of directors that has no experience, and they're all handpicked by Iger. So they're all Iger shills. They're all Iger simps. All of them, every single one of them. So what I want you to get introduced, so that we got that going on. So now I want you guys to see who is Nelson Peltz. Now, there was a very good interview with Nelson Peltz from 8 months ago, a little bit before 8 months ago, right before this proxy battle started. So I want you guys to listen in. This one's a little bit long, but it's important. His history here is important, who he is and what he does. So I want you guys to listen to who Nelson Peltz is, what he does, and the reasons why he gets involved. This is something that people in the industry, that in the know, they know this. But I know a lot of you guys don't know this. Like, yeah, Valiant knows who he is, but Valiant's a freaking dork. I love him. He's my dork. But we know, right? Because we're involved in this. I was corporate counsel, I was in-house. I know, right? He knows. But you, the people, need to know who he is and what his strategy is, why he invests in the company invests in, and why he gets involved. So we're going to start that in a second. Before that, R. Johns with a member chat says, good morning from Florida. Hail to my based Floridians, my Chads and Stacys out there in the chat. Appreciate all y'all, R. Johns. Hope you're having a lovely day in the Sunshine State. Start your morning off strong. All right. So here we go. Let's do this one right over here. Okay, here you go. So here is videos on Nelson Peltz. It's an interview with Bloomberg Wealth.
We're just trying to get these companies to operate better the way they used to. We wouldn't be there.
I like that. We're just trying to get these companies to operate better like they used to. Okay, that's the key word. Like they used to, like Disney used to. That's what I like to hear. Right out of the gate. I won't interrupt too much, but that's an important one. Meredith G says, take BlackRock abandoning ESG with a grain of salt. They could rebrand it. I work in the industry and I don't see any indications of backing away just yet. Yeah, Meredith, when I stop seeing corporate emails with pronouns in the bio, I'll believe it. But until then, until I stop seeing emails with pronouns in the bio, I'm not really believing it. I'm not really believing it. I want to see it now. You got to show me the money. Pilgrim meeting with $2 hail from Tampa, Florida, 13th Judicial Circuit. Shout out to my base Floridians, especially those in the judicial circuits. And also, as Slade Wilson says, hit the like, good information here. Yeah, this is the only place, honestly, the only channel that's covering this that has really gone in depth on this. So I wanted to do this for educational purposes because I am not just an entertainer. I am also an educator. So let's continue.
If they really were doing well, clearly they're not thrilled to see us. But what usually happens is that these stocks go up.
Nice little intro reel here. So let's skip right over this here.
Some of the best known brands in America: Heinz, Wendy's, DuPont, PepsiCo, Procter & Gamble, Mondelez.
Okay, so there you go. So these are the companies that Nelson Peltz has gotten involved with: Wendy's, Heinz, Mondelez, DuPont, PepsiCo. And remember Procter & Gamble? Yeah, Procter & Gamble. So remember our good friend, Miss Chang, she would remember that and be like, oh shit, Bob. Oh shit. We got a problem here. We got a problem here.
Please, and the list goes on.
I like fixing things and I like growing things.
You can say it all began when he took a contrarian view toward traditional education.
What I really wanted to do was ski. So I left Wharton and I went up to Maine and became a ski bum.
Eventually.
Okay, so the guy left Wharton, which is the best business school in the US for skiing, right? So that's his background there. It's a little bit of his background there. We're going to get into more of it, but that's a little bit of his background.
Peltz came home and drove a truck for his father's food distribution company. He ended up growing the company and making it the cornerstone of his own business.
Okay, so a trucker, which is pretty base. A lot of base truckers out there nowadays, and I think honestly, you learn a lot seeing the U.S. by like being out there as a trucker. And some of the guys that end up, I think, doing the best are the guys that see that start as truckers. I think a lot of truckers are doing really well right now, and great guys, great people. So when I saw that, I'm like, I've got a little bit of hope just from that.
While I was running this food business, I kept investing. I liked investing. And then I felt it was time for us to expand.
Peltz did things like buy Snapple from Quaker Oats, turn it around, and sell it to Cadbury Schweppes. It became a Harvard Business School case study. And in 2005, Peltz co-founded Tryon.
We saw great opportunity by having a fund that could make investments in bigger companies.
Peltz and Tryon typically build up a stake in the company and eventually meet with management to discuss ways to fix the business. But he's not a fan of the term activist investor. So for those who don't know, what is an active investor?
We're not an active investor. What we see is
So he doesn't like the term. I think I explained it to you a lot. Some people don't like the term. He's one of those that does not like the term active investor or activist investor. So that's his preference there.
we see really companies that we think were once great have lost their way, and that we have a plan for them to get back to greatness again. And that's what we do. We're not there to leverage up these companies. We're not there to split them up. We're not there to do all the terrible things that typically go along with the term activist. We're just trying to get these companies to operate better the way they used to.
Okay.
So that sounds pretty reasonable, right? I mean, that sounds like what people want from Disney. And we've been asking for a while. We've been saying, hey, when are the investors, people ask that all the time, say, when are the investors going to say enough is enough? When are shareholders going to say enough? Yeah, it's now. That's now. That's right now. We're at that point where people are looking at Disney and saying, look, you used to be killing it. What the hell is going on? This should be a clear buy. Why are people selling? Why are people knocking this stock down? By the way, the sound, in case people know, the sound is a little bit low because that's the original source audio file. It's not me. So crank it up a little bit on your end. It's as high as it's going to go on my end. So sorry about that. If anybody is coming a little low to anybody, that's maxed out on my end. So you can see it all the way there. Boom, maximum volume. So, all right. continuing here.
So what you typically do, for those who don't know, is you buy some stock in the company. That's a large public company.
Right.
Then when you own a stake and you become public in it, you notify the CEO that you're a big shareholder.
Exactly right.
And
Now
when
you're an activist.
okay, when you notify the CEO and you say, "I'm Nelson Peltz. I'm here to help you," does he say, "Geez, I don't really need that much help," or he says, "Okay, give me your ideas"?
All the above. Okay. Sometimes no one is thrilled that we're there. Some are much more receptive to hear what we've got to say. We've put together a
Okay, so let me be clear. So in this case of Disney, I guarantee you that Bob Iger is not happy he's there. Bob Iger is like, oh, F. Like, he's definitely not happy that this is happening right now. This is not a zippity doodah day. Not that it would be, because, well, zippity doodah has been exiled into oblivion. But that being said, that they're definitely, Bob is definitely not happy about this. Now, this white paper is important. So they put together a white paper to go over with management. So that is their suggestion. So that is their to-do list, their honey-do list, which they put together. Instant Live for Canadian 5 says, as an example, when Peltz got involved in Wendy's, its stock had tanked down to $4. It has been sitting on a 5x for several years after that. Yeah, that's what they want to do. They want to take a stock that's down and 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x it, right? Because they get insane value. Other shareholders get insane value. It's good for everybody. That's a win-win. That's what you want. You want shareholders bringing accountability, and this is shareholders trying to bring some accountability.
white paper to go over with management. And that white paper stays private as long as we're in conversation. And if we want a board seat when we think that they're ready to give us a board seat, it will always stay private. But if they refuse to, then we make that white paper public.
All right.
Okay. Let me go back here. Let me play this one more time.
To give us a board seat, it will always stay private. But if they refuse to, then we make that white paper public.
Okay. So imagine this white paper they're sitting on right now. Imagine the suggestion list that we've got for Disney. Imagine what we've got here. We've got so many. I mean, they've probably been taking notes on our live streams like, yep, got to change that. Yep, got it. Okay. Tiana's Magic Mountain. Well, that's some bullshit. We're going back. You know, there's so many things here that you can go through and be like, Ahsoka? Yeah, no. It is going to be absolutely filled with suggestions for, hey, you're gonna do this. Were you talking about another pregnant Rey? Yeah. We're not gonna go there. We're gonna say no. We're gonna say no to that. Another strong woman character. Okay, yep, that's gonna be a no. The list is probably guys in dresses at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Yeah, that's probably on the honeydew list. Guarantee it. By the way, still drinking the Asahi here. Really good beer. A little of the burps, but still really good. No dudes selling little girls' clothes. I'm sure that's on the list. And the last thing they want is for that to go public. That white paper goes public and stock price go down big time. Incoherent Term for $4.99 says, white paper suggestion, don't make everybody a furry or in a wheelchair. Very good suggestion. Would Peltz ever team up with Perlmutter? Well, JL, I think it's pretty simple. Peltz is going to put out his slate of candidates for the board of directors, and they can vote for them, right? Perlmutter can go out there and back them up. So is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you're a shareholder, you can back up Peltz's slate. Anybody, even a small shareholder, can back it up in a proxy fight.
All right. So of the 30 times you've done this or so, how many times the CEO say, thank you for showing up, I really want your advice? And how many they say, thank you, but I don't need your advice?
I can't tell you, but I don't remember anybody ever saying the former, okay? But not very often have they been as tough as you said on the latter. Clearly, they're not thrilled to see us. But what usually happens is that these stocks go up. And they go up nicely for the right reasons, because sales have gone up, market shares have gone up, earnings clearly have gone up. And and we tell them what we think they're doing wrong. The most recent one, which is really interesting, was Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble was about a $70 stock for almost 10 years. And the biggest consumer company in the world, but really giving away market share here and there wherever anybody was challenging them. We didn't think the company was structured properly.
Okay, hold on. There we go. So it could be just that. That could be one of their suggestions. So they could say straight up, hey, the way you're running things, Iger, you're restructuring. Because remember, that was what he went away over. He said, oh, Iger's going to restructure. So maybe it's restructuring. Maybe it's getting rid of Iger. We don't know what his new suggestions are. Now, I think, who was it who said this? CW Griswold, 83, said he published his suggestions a few months ago for the previous proxy battle. This is new. So I'm sure that there are new concerns that have come up as new lawsuits have been filed. A few months ago, it's like 6 lawsuits ago. I mean, there's many. What's happened in the last few months? The few months have been insane for Disney. It's been nuts for Disney. So a few months ago, it's like years for other companies. So much has gone wrong in Disney over and over and over again that I'm sure there's an updated list. I'm sure there's more suggestions.
So we went to them and gave them a plan and said, look, there's one CEO. No one has P&L responsibility in this company anywhere other than the CEO. So there's really no ability to impact things because everything was a matrixed organization. We gave them our structure. They rejected it. We had a proxy fight. We finally won our board seat, and the shareholders won.
So
Hold on. Is this not the type of graph that Disney wants to see? Is this not the type of graph that Disney wants to see? I think so. They would love to see their graph because they're about at 80 right now, right? So if you look at this, the low here is about the same place. It's about in the 80s. They would love to see that about double, to 150. That would be amazing. So that's what they're hoping for, shooting for with Disney, is a flip like this.
Decide what companies to invest in. There are an infinite number of companies you could invest in. So how do you decide which ones you want to fix and help fix?
Well, the companies that we think we know something about their industries, anything consumer, including restaurants, asset management companies, when we've been in one from Legg Mason 2 times to Invesco, to Janus Henderson, Mellon. We've been in all of those. So there's a financials that we call financials without balance sheets.
Okay. So when you make these...
So I mean, if we're talking about bad balance sheets, we're talking about crappy balance sheets, which, by the way, I know somewhere Mexican Iron Man is getting extremely turned on. Yeah, that's Disney. That's definitely Disney. Their balance sheet, their assets versus liabilities, not looking so hot. That's exactly what we have with Disney. Precisely what we have with Disney. Maria Trujillo says this has been coming for a long time. Wish it would have happened 5 or even 10 or even just 5 years ago. Hopefully this will lead to better things. Yeah, I believe it'll take a while, but it's possible. It's possible it can. I'm not promising it will. That's the difference here, guys. See this? I am not promising this will work out. I'm saying there's a possibility. There's a better possibility than before. There's a better possibility than pre this happening, right? But him coming out and having a proxy fight, having a proxy battle, it brings it to the forefront. It brings it to the forefront of mainstream financial conversation. That's the important thing. And that's what you don't mess around with. And that's what gets Disney worried.
Let's go. Investments. You have outside advisors that advise you, McKinsey or Bain or BCG. that help you come up with some plan to go forward, or
No.
you do it all internal?
All done here
So you have a research team in New York, because that's where you're based.
in this office and in Florida.
And when did you start?
Of course they have one in Florida, by the way. Of course they have one in Florida. What's up, Mephisto? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're all right.
Well, we started Trian Partners in 05. Before that, I was buying companies like you did, not with a fund, but with vehicles or with capital that we could cobble together. And we did some very good deals back then. We bought what we created was American National Can, which was the biggest packaging company in the world at that time. We bought Snapple from Quaker Oats and turned that around. We created National Propane. So we did that on a single company where we own the company. And then we decided to have a fund, and that we saw great opportunity by having a fund that could make investments in bigger companies that we couldn't buy. The first one we started with was Wendy's. The second one was Heinz. And Heinz unfortunately wound up to be a proxy fight. It didn't need to be.
See, that's the point. So this is telling you where it might go. If Iger is stubborn, it ends up a proxy fight, right? And at this point, we see what happens. So we're seeing the parallels. So willing to play nice behind the scenes if you're willing to play ball. But it seems like they're not willing to play ball, right? Not willing to play ball with Iger's not willing to play ball with making money, right? With getting back on track. And it's funny because if you look at some of this talk, remember how Iger recently said he was going to quiet the noise? Remember the quiet the noise, guys? Remember the quiet the noise? Well, it could be because he had rumblings or he was talking to Peltz behind the scenes, and Peltz was like, homie, it about to go down and if you don't change some stuff. And so Iger's like, okay, let me put out this half-cocked quiet the noise thing. But actually, we're not going to make any major changes. It's like, no, not enough. Gotta really shake things up. Not going to happen. Not enough.
I got on the board. Bill Johnson and I became very good friends, who was chairman and CEO, who fought with us. He ultimately wound up to be on our advisory board, and he was our nominee on the board of Pepsi. So think about that. We had a proxy fight and became very fast friends, which usually is what happens.
So let's go before we.
What happens when you start making money, right? So people start getting making money. I love Jenny. It says, I know the Peltz' kids. Interesting family. Oh, interesting. Got an inside scoop. Inside scoop.
Back to more of what you're doing, your background. So from your accent, it sounds like you're from New York.
I'm from Brooklyn.
All right, you're from Brooklyn, part of New York. Okay, so you're
Special part of New York.
I love that, Benjamin. Homie, it's about to go down. Legal Mindset 2023, 100%. You can quote me on that. Homie, shit about to go down. 2023 Legal Mindset.
special part. Okay, so were you growing up in a wealthy family in Brooklyn?
No, I was growing up in a middle class
Okay.
family in Brooklyn.
And what did your father do?
My father had a produce and frozen food distributorship right in Lower Manhattan in the old Washington market, and it was doing about $2 million a year in total volume, but he supported a family beautifully on it.
Okay, so were you a superstar student in high school or a great athlete? What were you most interested in?
Well, I thought I was a great athlete, that's for sure. I don't know that my coaches agreed with me, but I was not a superstar student. I went to public school through the 8th grade, went to high school, went to Wharton. Okay.
Well, getting into Wharton isn't that easy.
So that's the best business school, one of the best business schools in all of America, at Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania. So just so you know, that's where like the elite of the elite of business schools, one of the best in the US, or if not the best, it's up there, right? It's up there. So that's kind of the key, is that he was there, but not for long.
Pretty good student.
I got good college boards.
Okay.
And I got to Wharton and really was quite bored at Wharton. I felt I was in the wrong place. What I really wanted to do was ski. So I left Wharton and I went up to Maine and became a ski bum.
What did your family say, Nelson, we really wanted you to go to Wharton and be a good student. You want to ski. I mean, that's not what you're supposed to do.
That's correct. They did say that.
What did you do? You said,
I
I'm going to
went,
ski.
my father was an amazing guy.
By the way, I think like honestly, that decision to like work instead or just do what you want to do, whether it's like a gap year, whatever, instead of just going down that pre-programmed path, that is so smart. But it's so good to get yourself out of that pre-programmed path that, okay, I've got to do X, Y, Z to get there. If you look at a lot of people that make it, right? I mean, it's not this linear path. Right? They're able to go out, they're able to do something different and then come back in and use that experience, use that knowledge and apply that. So, I mean, that's actually a much better move than just going standardly through it. Iger said he was going to de-escalate and then sued Florida. Oh, de-escalate. It's probably what you're meant to say.
He wasn't happy that I left Wharton. He wasn't happy that I was a ski bum. And he wasn't happy that I grew a beard. But I did all of those things. And the snow melted in late spring and came back, and I had a summer job offered to me in Mount Hood, Oregon, to help them and teach racing to young kids in Mount Hood, Oregon. And I needed some money to get out there. I asked him if he'd give me a job on a truck, $100 a week, 2 weeks. That was all I needed.
That was back when $100 a week was a lot of money.
He said, fine, shave your beard off and do it. I said, I would. So I shaved my beard off. And after about a week on the job,
it's a hippie
I
beard,
started
probably. It's
telling
probably a
him
hippie
things
beard
that I thought that were missed opportunities. And he set me up beautifully. He said, why don't you stay here and do what you want to do instead of going out to Mount Hood, Oregon? Well, I did, and that's what happened.
So when did you leave the family business and start your own company?
What I did was I started to build that business, and I had a portfolio of bar mitzvah money and gifts.
In case you didn't guess, Nelson Peltz had a bar mitzvah. In case I think it's a shock. I don't know, that's shocking information here. It's shocking information.
And I started investing in the market, and I started a little fund with my money and some of my family and friends. And we did pretty well. So while I was running this food business, I kept investing. I liked investing. And then I felt it was time for us to expand. When I came to the business, we had no salesmen. I built a sales force in New York. Then I wanted to buy a company in Boston doing the same thing. We did.
Sorry, I gotta get this one from Mephisto, my homie. He said that bar mitzvah money is legit. Andrew, ask Joe. Yo, I do have to ask Joe Neerman. I'm like, Joe, how much we talk about that bar? Like, what was the drop off that bar mitzvah? Are we talking like new, new car? Like, what are we talking about right now? We're talking down payment on a house. Like what's up with that bar mitzvah money? I don't know. I got to check in.
I put the money up for that personally, became the largest share owner. Then we bought one in Baltimore, Washington, another distribution house, and then one in Philadelphia. And then we were doing almost $150 million a year in business, the largest food service distributor in Northeast at that time.
So I like that. Birch Gold money. Somebody said 20K at least. 20K. Dude, it's 20K. And yeah, back then, in his day, 20K, that would have been a lot.
Took it public, sold it, and then went on to doing other things.
Okay, so let me skip forward here a little bit. So that goes into the kind of history of activist investors real quick.
Off part of a company, getting a seat on the board of directors, or getting rid of certain board members. Activist investors will target companies that are poorly managed or operate inefficiently. Among the big names that have made their mark in activist investing are Carl Icahn, Paul Singer, Bill Ackman, Dan Loeb, and Nelson Peltz.
So you saw Bill Ackman in that example we were talking about Target. Bill Ackman was the one who was the active investor there. Now, his attempts failed, right? But Nelson's have worked, and there's been others that have had a lot of success as activist investors.
In 2017, Peltz targeted Procter & Gamble after his Trian Fund Management took a stake in the company.
Remember, once again, we got a board member that's on P&G, so they're going to remember this because this is 2017. This is very recent. This is not something that happened a long time ago.
After a costly proxy fight, he won a seat on the board. Peltz argued that P&G suffered from a bloated structure and needed to be reorganized. P&G didn't follow all his suggestions, but streamlined its operations, cleared out its bureaucracy, and improved its earnings growth.
Okay, so let's look at that for Disney. So this is what I want to talk about. So let's apply that to Disney. So let's say that he doesn't get everything he wants. He doesn't get a bunch of board members on the seat. He doesn't get a full like revamping. What would that look like for Disney? Well, I think the minimum here, if we're applying this to Disney, streamlining its operations. So getting rid of a lot of the fat at Disney. What is a lot of the fat? Well, frankly, to me, if we're talking about bureaucracy, we're talking about streamlining. That's all the DEI, that's all the woke bullshit. At this point, paying for all that is the bureaucracy and is the thing that needs to be streamlined. They fired a lot of their core employees. They don't have money other places to cut except for there. So I think that's where they're going with that. Improving the earnings growth. How do you do that? Well, you focus on your core competencies, your core areas, which for Disney would be the parks and its main media properties. It's major media properties. I like this. Meredith G says, at the time Peltz got his bar mitzvah money, he likely got savings bonds. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Very true. We'll watch a little bit more of this, and then we're going to go into what he's going to do specifically at Disney, because he has made comments about that. So stay tuned.
Time Peltz was on the board, the stock rose 58%, making shareholders
pretty nice.
Happy.
Pretty nice.
Now, years ago, I'd say in the 1970s and 1980s, if you were trying to change a company from the outside, people said, well, you're a raider, you're an activist, you're not good for America. And just let the board run the company the way the CEO wants to do it. And for that reason, a lot of institutional investors never would invest with people that were trying to do what you were trying to do now. How has the world changed? Because now you have institutional investors, many big public pension funds, I assume. Why are they now so happy with what you do as opposed to 25 years ago or so where they said, we don't want that kind of approach?
Because they want their portfolios to perform, and their portfolios haven't performed. You know, the first quarter this year, and I don't mean to pick on private equity.
And that's where we're at right now, by the way. They're not performing, they're not delivering, right? They're promising a lot, but they're not delivering at all whatsoever.
The S&P was down dramatically, and one of the private equity firms, not yours, so I'm not, so
okay,
you're
okay.
Free and clear, reported that their portfolios had a rough quarter and they were up 2.8%. Now, 2.8% versus the S&P in the first quarter don't even look like one another, okay? But some of these investors and some of these institutions are happy with that because they can report what happened and they'll put that up 2.8% versus their public equities portfolio. At a certain point in time, that's got to change. Okay, but I think what people don't understand is that we are making their portfolios better.
And that's the thing right now that I think people really hate on when they think of activist investors. And we're going to get into, I want to flip over to what he's going to do to Disney specifically, but they think that the intent here is to cause harm, is to wreck Disney, is to destroy the stock. But rather, the intent here is to improve it, is to make that stock better, to make their portfolio better. So if you own Disney, like Mexican Iron Man, is to make that investment actually worth something, make it actually something that's worthwhile to have and to own, right? Or worthwhile to have as part of your like broader portfolio, whether it's an ETF or whatever else. Music and Fiction for 5 says, what this likely means is ABC getting divested from Disney. DEI is fully cut despite BlackRock's whining and mewling and focus on parks and animation. That could very well be the case. All right, so we have this other one. So that was an interview from a year ago. I want to get into this one from 8 months ago. Okay. So this is Peltz, and this is specifically on Disney. So he's talking again specifically on Disney, not on anything else, not generally, not his background, whatever else. He's talking about Disney. This is an interview he did with CNBC. You're going to see old Jim Cramer pop up, which, by the way, if Jim Cramer says something, you usually think the opposite, and you'll be right. More often than not, it's like the opposite, the inverse Cramer fund. But this is back when he was talking about what Disney is, right? And the whole title here, you're not going to be able to fully read it, but Disney is more than a media company. It's a consumer company. That's the key here. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's the focus here. They're not just media. That's actually not their main breadwinner. It's the people consuming Disney. I love this, by the way. This is back in February where they are simping hard for Disney. They're shilling hard for Disney. And I love how this mainstream media, I have to stop myself from cursing. This MFing pixie dust and shill here is like, you have no media experience. We just looked at the board. Show me who on this board has media experience. Let's go back here for a second. I want to go back here for a second. 1 second. Who has media experience on this board? Who has media experience? Is it Mark? Nope, he doesn't. Is it Mary? Nope. Safra? Nope. Amy? Nope. Francis? Carolyn? Mike? Maria? Calvin? Derica? None of these motherfuckers have any media experience at all whatsoever. None. Zero. None of these people. So for people in the mainstream, these shills out there to be saying, well, you don't have any media experience. Well, neither do any of these people, and they're screwing up. So it's not hard to do better than that. Right? It's not hard to do better than having no experience, because nobody has experience here. So this is let's stop right there. So that is an important point. So you've got Disney, which owns these greatest brands. They got Lucasfilm, they got Marvel, they got all these intellectual properties, and they're still screwing up. This is what all of us are so frustrated with. It's the fact that they've got all these properties. They literally got the Infinity Gauntlet. They've got all of the Power Stones. They got everything. They got the Time Stone. They got everything, man. They got everything. RIP Vision. They got it all. And they still are screwing up. It takes a certain special level of incapacity and incompetence, a special level of incompetence to screw up when you have that basket of goods. And when you forget that you're not just there to produce media for propaganda purposes, you're there to actually please consumers and make people want to buy your products, come back, and not just forcing them to watch your movies, but actually forcing them to go in and buy and go to the parks, buy the plushie, right? Buy the shoes, buy the t-shirt, buy everything else. I like that. Proxy War episode 2. Return of the Peltz. It's Return of the Jedi, baby. That's the vibe I get. Let's go here.
All about poor corporate governance.
Oh, that's MSG, by the way, guys. It's Madison Square Garden, right? So obviously there's some issues with Madison Square Garden. Of course, those were there before we got it. You own this specific investment, and that's a bad investment. But he's saying it's not my company's investment. It's my personal investment. It's a personal investment because the guy is from Brooklyn. He's a New Yorker, in case you didn't know, right? I know you may be surprised that he had a bar mitzvah. I know that may have been very shocking for you, just like Joe Neerman having a bar mitzvah. Very shocking. Ron Coleman having a bar mitzvah. Very shocking. I know. It's very surprising that Ron Coleman, Joe Neerman, and Nelson Peltz, who probably went to the same synagogue, by the way, that they had a bar mitzvah. Also, that he's from New York. I mean, there's no way to tell. It's not like there's any way to tell just by turning on the audio that this guy's from Brooklyn. This guy's from New York, right? I mean, come on, man. Come on. Kramer's puffy ass. First of all, why did they allow this guy still on TV? Like, why do they let, seriously, Kramer should have been shamed off after 2007, 2008. Should have been absolutely run out of town. I don't know what is going on here. with like allowing Kramer in 2023 to still make financial analysis. It's absolutely embarrassing. By the way, Leprechaun, speaking of bar mitzvahs, Leprechaun Gold with a $20 #1 Sheba sticker. Appreciate that. Thank you. Sending in my bar mitzvah money. Pure jealousy for $4.99 says, take Disney back to the world we wish it was. Not the world it is. Yes. Disney should be an escape from reality, not worse than reality, and certainly not forcing on this minority, this woke minority view onto the majority of Americans, which could care less for your propaganda and bullshit and just want something that is safe to entertain their children. It's safe to escape from reality. Escapism, right? Escapism. Okay, let me rewind a little bit because I got a little worked up with when old Jim got on screen. Oh man, it's absolutely horrible. I mean, people say Jim drains money from people. That's why, yeah. I mean, hashtag not financial advice, but following Kramer seems to be a bad financial advice. Just see, here's the thing. This shows Jim was not paying attention because we actually did know what was happening. We actually said what was happening months ago. Now it's public. Now the mainstream finally accepted it. But we've been talking about it. We've been talking. Go back to our channel. Rewind that amount of times. We knew this. We were saying this. Yeah. Iger fucked Chapek. We know that. Now, Chapek was no Jesus. He was no savior. He was no descending out of there from nowhere just to bless us of our sins or whatever. You know, that's not happening, right? However, we knew that. We knew that for years. The mainstream media, after this interview, so this is 8 months ago, they've now come out and said, yep, that's exactly what happened. Iger was pulling the strings behind the scenes the entire time. He was still sitting in the office. He never left, which I believe Peltz is going to bring up here in a second. But we've known that. We know that. Just you're not listening. You're not paying attention because Jim Cramer never pays attention to details. He just yells and screams and hopes that you buy the stock, right? And presses a bunch of buttons and hits stuff with that inflatable hammer or whatever else, right? I mean, ridiculousness. At this point, by the way, there's lawsuits against Chapek. So Nelson Peltz is actually really smart here by not commenting on Chapek. He knows that, hey, look, there's lawsuits out there on this. So we're in the middle of suits over what Chapek did or didn't, right? So we know that, but the point is, and let me back up here a little bit. He knows that Bob Iger was still there. Let me put this right here. Let me just rewind this for a second. So hold on. Pay attention one more time.
And he was still the guy that people were checking with. Then
he was still the guy that people were checking with. So let's actually go back here.
First of 2021.
Right.
He was executive chairman. I'm told he physically never even left his office.
I'm told he physically never even left his office. We know that's confirmed now, right? We know that. That fact that Peltz said, I'm told, no, we know that. That's confirmed, right? But Kramer, of course, wasn't listening, wasn't paying attention, didn't know that, right? He doesn't actually do a deep dive or due diligence on these stocks. And here's the point. Nobody in Disney was holding anybody accountable. Nobody was holding anybody accountable. They were like, oh yeah, we're not going to hit our targets. We're not going to hit our earnings. We're not going to hit our milestones. Nobody was saying, hey, this is a problem. Hey, let's change course. Hey, we need to pay attention to this. Nope. It was all, yes. Yes, Fuhrer Iger. You know, whatever we must do, you know. Comrade Iger calls you for one last woke crusade, right? It was that over and over and over and over again. You know, and that's not a company that's running effectively. The board is supposed to be a check on that. The other C-suite executives are supposed to be like, hey, buddy, shit's not working. But when they're all yes men, that's no different than the CCP. That's exactly the same thing that Chairman Xi does in China. And we all know that corporate America wants to be communist China. They all have a boner for Beijing. They have a Beijing boner, if you will. Doesn't go away in 36 hours. Please call your doctor. Please call your doctor. If your Beijing boner lasts for more than 36 hours.
Dramatic miss. And Chapek bore the full responsibility of that.
So that's the kind of rub there was Chapek took the fall there at Disney, and Chapek's gone now. You've gotten rid of them. The only person to blame the person at the top of the chain, when you go to the executive leadership, it's your boy, Bob, right? It's your boy, Bob. That's the only one to blame. Every single person on this list, except for Bob, is a Bob crony. The whole board, right? All of the board, which is supposed to keep them accountable, which is supposed to bring knowledge, perspective, and experience to guide the company, they ain't bringing jack shit. They're not bringing anything. So anyways, that is where I'm at with that. Now, what do I think comes from that? Well, I think in terms of long-term trend, when we're talking about what's going on in Disney long-term, it is going to take a hell of a lot to fix the longer-term trend that Disney is in right now. To fix this, when we look at the longer-term trend for Disney here, this is going to take a lot to fix, right? You've got to more than double Disney's value just to get back where they were. You've got to more than double their value. So there's a long way back. It is a long road. Can they buy people's confidence back? Is it possible? 5 years, 10 years, maybe. Next year, hell no. It's not happening right away. I think Disney needs a lot of work, a lot of reform to get back there. 10 years, maybe. But my thought is, until Bob is out, it ain't going to happen. So if Peltz can make changes, yeah, it may stave it off. But if they don't involve getting rid of Iger, I don't think they're going to be able to make the fundamental changes possible. So I think it's important. I think it may drive change, but you've got to get rid of Iger. That's the key here. If Iger doesn't go, the direction of the company doesn't go, because he is the chairman Xi right now. And if Xi is still in power, it doesn't work. It absolutely does not work. I want to know what you guys think. What do you think? Do you think I'm wrong here? Do you think that Peltz can? What do you guys think? Let me know. Do you think Peltz can absolutely turn it around? Do you think that that he's going to make an impact? He's not going to make an impact. That Disney is screwed forever. What do you guys think? Can Disney turn it around? In fact, I'll do a little poll here. I like polls. I like polls. So, can Disney turn around? Simple poll. It's a yes or no. And you can mean it in the way when I say turn around, you can mean it in 5-year, 10-year context. Is it possible? Gunner says, actually, Xi has had more pushback behind closed doors than Iger has. He was reportedly berated by the Council of Elders earlier this year. I don't doubt it. Because China is much more complicated. Despite what people say, China is much more complicated than people give it. The Chinese system has trouble holding China together. Like, China is the system that China is trying to hold together. It's kind of nuts. Disney corporate culture is cancerous. Yeah. Andrew likes polls. Yes. Especially ones that are danced on. Disney's recent upturn was artificial. It was the industry bump in streaming enthusiasm due to everybody having a cold. Well, there you go. And there can be, the thing is, guys, you got to not get fooled, because when you look at these charts, and this is once again not financial advice, right? But you got to zoom out. That's the problem. A lot of people sit here and they're on like a 5-day chart and they're like, to the moon, right? You look at this chart, you're like, oh, Disney, they're back to the moon. That's it. Get wrecked, fools. Disney's back. But then you zoom out and you're like, oh, wait. Oh. Even if, and like, that's not even zooming out that far. It's going from 5-day to 6 months. It's what you call a local top. And it hasn't even beat the previous local top. So, I mean, don't give that too much. Don't read too much into that. Their trend is down. Their trend is into the gutter, whence they came from. JL says, Peltz can definitely turn the company around, but I don't think it will matter, as Disney is a generational company. Watch movie with kids, go to park with parents. That has been ruined. This is an excellent point, because it's at a point where people are abandoning Disney parks, where Disney park attendance is down, where people are saying, you know what? We're not going, right? I mean, you even see here, this is literally last month, but let me show you guys this right here. Article. It's a pretty good article, actually. But news report shares the concern why attendance at Disney's theme park is dropping. They're becoming a ghost town. When Disney parks, which are thematic in Florida, which are like the craziest thing in Florida, everybody goes to Disney parks, everybody, and they're becoming a ghost town, that's embarrassing. That's absolutely embarrassing. I mean, I love these photos. This is like, hold on, let me show you guys this. Epcot on a Saturday. Look at this. Look at this. On a Saturday at Epcot. Have you guys ever seen this? This is like nuts. I would feel like, did a bomb go off? I never see this. Ever. This is really, really bad. And look, I've gone to Disney a lot. Don't get me wrong. When I was there in Florida, I went a lot. But I've never seen Disney like that. Never seen it that empty. Incredibly crazy. So, yeah, it's absolutely a huge problem. People say, "Oh, it looks uncrowded. It's appealing." Yeah, except for they're going to try to put your kids in a dress. R.I.P. Here lies Disney. Here lies Disney. Guys, make sure it's 551 of you. If you guys can do me a solid and smash the like button, that would really help us out in the algorithm and really help us get out there. We still have so much to cover from Disney. We have actually a brand new class action lawsuit that's come out recently, which I'm going to cover in the near future. We also are going to have updates very, very shortly. I believe within the month, we should have some action on the federal and state cases. Probably the federal case will get some action first, and then we'll get some action in the state case for Disney. We've got several shareholder lawsuits that are waiting to resolve themselves. So we've got a lot of legal stuff, and that's just legal stuff. Not to mention that in November 8th, as you know, what do we got coming up? An earnings call. So we have an earnings call November 8th, which is absolutely going to be nuts. So doing this ahead of the earnings call makes it a hell of a lot more interesting. It's going to make that earnings call a hell of a lot more interesting. So we've got so much going on right now. Lawsuits, earning call, Hulu. They've got to buy Hulu. They're on the clock now to buy Hulu. So they're in arbitration right now to figure out the value of Hulu. This is absolutely a time when they're putting pressure on Disney when the pressure is on Disney. And also, guys, I just want to make sure that you guys are, if you're not already a member, let me tell you guys to consider becoming a member as well, because we have Pimpcast coming up again, back in the house for members only on YouTube. That's coming up Wednesday night. And it'll also be on Illegal Mindset for free and on Rumble for my base Chats and Stacy's over there on Rumble. Very excited for that. We've got Mr. Khan, who's coming on to talk about Yale and suing them. I know he's done a short interview with Nate and with Uncivil, but we're going to have a much more unbreaded discussion on legal mindset, a much more raw discussion. So that one should be very interesting to deal with. And I'll also have a bunch of other topics coming up this week as well. Make sure over there on Locals, which is where you get the best information as quickly as possible out to all of you. In This Live has $5 Canadian Super Chat, which says, I was just in Orlando for 2 weeks. People were Disney was a ghost town. They were saying it, I guess. Day of restaurant reservation. That's nuts. You used to have to book those 90 days out. Yeah, I remember like Le Cellier would have to be booked out like 6 months in advance. Something absolutely nuts. But people were telling me, oh yeah, I'm getting same day reservations for the places you need to book, like absolutely out. The Be Our Guest restaurant, remember that one? Yeah, that one was booked out forever. Oh, now I'm getting same day Be Our Guest reservations. Nut stuff. Absolutely nut stuff. But I think I've got everybody here today. So listen, guys, it's been great. It's been fun. 2 streams today. I'm kind of pumped up. Maybe one tomorrow morning. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. Otherwise, we'll have a Locals exclusive. So stay tuned on that if you're on Locals. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much. And I will catch you all later.